Well, good morning, YouTube friends and family. Happy Monday. And today you find me sitting in front of my long-term storage pantry. Now, I know in an earlier video I said it's not safe to show your pantry, blah, blah, blah. But you know, the reality of it is anyone who knows me or watches my channel knows that I am a sort of prepper, or that I have a storage of food, and I'm really pretty unconcerned about someone coming for my 14 jars of peanut butter. And actually, they could have the peanut butter. So today, by popular request, I want to talk to you about how to build an old-fashioned frugal pantry. So stay tuned. Well, let's get started talking about how to build a pantry. So I looked ad nauseum for a great, perfect pantry list for all of you that I could link in the description box. And what I discovered, and if I would have thought about it, I would have known it all along, is that everyone's needs are very individual to your likes and dislikes, the size of your family, and maybe dietary restrictions. So from that viewpoint, I am going to talk first a little bit about the why, and then we'll get into categories, and I'll talk about how you might determine what's best to put in your pantry. So first and foremost, what's the goal of having a pantry? So I have my large long-term storage pantry. I have 2 cabinets with my canning and dehydrated foods, and then I have my working pantry, which I did a video on and I'll drop in the description box. That's sort of my everyday use pantry. So the goal is to add to your surplus when you grocery shop, not just put food on the table for the week. That's how you build a pantry. Now, I did not accumulate all of this food in a week, in a month, not even in a year. It's taken me a couple years to really have a good staples pantry, and I've made some mistakes along the way, and I'll share those with you as we go along. So why would you want a pantry? Why not just go to the grocery? Well, I think if COVID taught us one thing, it's that in our lifetimes, we're seeing things we never thought we would see. Toilet paper shortage, which I never thought I would see. But also, I was totally amazed at the very first start of COVID, how much things like rice and beans and noodles were just absent from the shelf. It wasn't just Lysol and toilet paper. There were things that people eat on the regular that were gone. You also could not find, in my area, bread flour or yeast. So either people decided to restart making bread, or they stockpiled or hoarded, if you want to call it that, for fear they wouldn't be able to get it. I'm not really sure, but at any rate, even canning jars, canning lids, everything kind of changed. So here are my top reasons of why I decided, and this was actually well pre-COVID, why I wanted to build a staples pantry. Number 1, convenience. So when I need something, I need another jar of honey, I need some artificial sweetener for my iced tea, it's here. I don't have to make a 40-minute round trip to the nearest Walmart to pick up those supplies. It saves me time. It saves me money, wear and tear on the car, gas. I buy in quantity, which you do have to do your math and make sure that buying quantity really is the best deal. But in most cases, it is. It enables me to do a variety of cooking. So if I just tip up here, you can see there's not too many things that I will eat that I don't have supplies on hand to make. And it's really fun when I see a new recipe, whether it's on Facebook or Pinterest, or maybe on another YouTube channel. I'm like, yep, I can make that because I have those supplies on hand. It does provide security in the event of a disaster. Now, during COVID, I didn't hoard anything. except maybe a little bit of toilet paper. What I actually did is instead of buying toilet paper as I needed it, I was buying toilet paper every time I went to the store. So my pantry includes both household staples, personal care staples, as well as food. For the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about building a staples pantry for food. Another reason I'm more likely to cook at home if I have food that I can pull off the shelf and prepare. So it saves me money not going out to eat. I can pull meals together very, very quickly, and home canning really has helped me do that. And I also have some canned meats. I have a lot of beans and rice, things like that, that I can very quickly cook, put a meal on the table. If you are not someone who cooks from scratch, having a staples pantry can help you learn or at least have access to the materials that you're going to need. And there are many great YouTube channels on how to do basic home cooking. And not buying those convenience foods not only saves you money, it's a very important part of your health. You're not consuming all those additives and preservatives. Now, do I have additives and preservatives on my shelf? I absolutely do. In my home canned and home dehydrated pantry, those foods are grown organically, and I know exactly what goes into it. But in reality, there's a limited amount of time, space, and garden space, so I have to supplement what I'm able to grow and home can with things from the store. One word of encouragement: please don't build your pantry on fear or panic. When you do that, you end up buying things that you're not going to probably use. You know, if you think you need to buy a lot of rice and beans and your family or yourself don't eat rice and beans, that's a fear panic buying, and it's probably going to sit on the shelf, go well past expiration date, and eventually spoil, and it's just money wasted. So how do you get started? How did I get started? Well, start slowly. I'm going to go through categories. Pick one category, and I know it's no spend January, but you can start this in February, and build the basics. So the list that I'm going to give you is not by any means, exhaustive. But if you choose what you love, if you choose what your family and yourself will eat, your pantry will be a success. If you're not really sure, like, I don't really know what I buy and I don't know how frequently I buy it, pull out some of your receipts. Or if you want to learn home cooking, look at some of your receipts from eating out. What are your go-to restaurants? Maybe you like Mexican and you'd like to learn to cook some Mexican dishes. So you're going to need tortillas and refried beans and tomatoes with chilies, those type things. Do buy in small amounts to start. I did buy in small amounts to start. However, I will share, I did buy some things that are still on my shelf because they're not things I absolutely love. They were things that I thought I should have because every good pantry has them. Well, that's only true if you will eat them and your family will enjoy them. Ask your family or your tribe or whoever you cook for what they like, what they would like to see. You know, I love pizza. So that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure I had supplies for, to make homemade pizza crust and homemade pizza sauce on my shelf. And finally, make sure that you have the right storage. So for purposes of this video, I took my still wrinkled curtain off. I actually have the ironing board up right now. I checked the label. It says cool iron, and I'm like, yeah, I'll probably have to run them through a rinse cycle on the washer and put them in the dryer in order to get those wrinkles out. But normally I keep it's very cool in here, and I keep it dark with those light blocking curtains. Same with my home canned goods. I keep it dark. I keep the doors on my pantry cabinets closed. I invested in some Loctite type lids. and containers for my Lazy Susan, which really has kept things amazingly fresh and definitely will enable me to use it to the end before having to purchase or replenish from my large pantry. So let's get started right now into talking about categories. So here's the ones I've identified: grains, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, flours, fats and oils. 6 is herbs and spices. 7 is canned and jarred goods. And 8 is miscellaneous. I kept thinking of things because I've worked a few days on this video as far as, the content, and I kept thinking of things. Oh, I better add this. Oh, I better add that. So let's just take it category by category, and I'm going to share what I've done and what you might want to do based on your family's likes and dislikes. So first, let's talk about grains. So up here, I have a lot of rice. I love rice. I love rice for breakfast. I know that's strange, but that's something I will eat. So I buy the rice in 25-pound bags. Anything I buy that's a dry good like that, I place in the freezer for 24 to 48 hours, and then I repackage, and let me kind of point down here, into the right storage, which I use Mylar for rice. Oats. I have quite a few containers of oats. Oats stay good for a very long time, and they can also be sealed in Mylar bags. They're great for oatmeal, cooking. You can put them in meatloaf. You can grind them up into a flour and make protein waffles out of them. I shared that on an earlier video as well. If you like it, quinoa is another one grain that you might consider keeping on your shelf. I'm not a huge fan of quinoa, so I don't have any. Wheat berries, and I've shared this before as well. So if you ever get to the point where you cannot find flour, and let's hope and pray that never happens, I have a grain mill attachment for my KitchenAid. So you need to make sure you have a way to utilize those wheat berries if you're going to stock that on your pantry shelf. Another grain is millet. Now, some of you might say, millet is birdseed. Millet has a lot of good fiber, and it can be really good if you're making your own granola bars or protein bars. It adds a nice crunchy texture. So I do keep millet in my pantry. I also included pastas in with the grains. Now, I'm not a huge pasta eater, believe it or not, and I have a lot of pasta. Usually when I go to the food pantry on a monthly basis, that's probably the number one thing that happens to be in my bag. So I need to find ways to utilize the pasta that I am receiving. But if your family loves pasta salads or spaghetti or lasagna, manicotti, you definitely want to stock some pasta on your shelves. Okay, category number 2, beans and legumes. I love me a bean. I have up here vacuum sealed probably every kind of bean that exists. And I also have some beans somewhere in here that are canned. So my favorite bean is a chickpea or garbanzo bean, and they're just so versatile. I like to have them both in a dried form as well as in a ready-to-use form in case there's ever a water issue. Then I know that I don't have to use water to rehydrate the dried beans. So you've got those type beans: kidney beans, pinto beans, black beans, navy beans, lentils. Not a fan of lentils, don't have it. But it's a great way to make a hearty soup. They're packed with protein. Only if your family will eat them, I highly recommend you stock beans. Any dollar store, you can buy beans. You can also buy them at Walmart. They're a little bit cheaper at Walmart. I happen to have a dollar store about a mile from my house, believe it or not, and I'm able to stock up occasionally on my bean supply as it gets low, and I also can those beans. All right, let's talk about nuts. So nuts are pricey, just the way it is. And nuts also can go rancid because they have a lot of fat or oil in them. So you may want to consider giving up some freezer space for nuts if you like to stock them. If you buy peanuts, you can grind that into your own peanut butter. Now, your own peanut butter, which I definitely don't need peanut butter, will only keep for about a week in the refrigerator before those oils will go rancid. So bear that in mind as you're stocking your pantry. I generally have almonds to make almond milk, walnuts because they're great in breads and snacking. And when I can find a good buy, I also like to have pecans. So think about the type of nuts that your family would eat and enjoy, or what you might use for baking cookies or breads, or in certain stir-fry type dishes. I would also include in this category your nut butters. So your peanut butter, your almond butter, any other type of nut butter that your family will eat. Seeds. Now, this may be something you're not thinking about eating, but there are some really great health benefits to eating seeds. So I did an earlier video on roasting pumpkin seeds. Those are great to have on your shelf. They're really good in granola. The actual seed itself, not with the shell on it. So I also have raw pumpkin seeds, but that's something I eat a lot of, not being a meat eater, and it helps me meet my protein needs. Sunflowers, seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds. There's all kinds of seeds, but you need to make sure it's something that you will use and that your family and yourself will enjoy eating. The next thing I want to talk about may take a little bit of time. So I want to talk about flowers. So if you've ever gone to the flower section of your grocery store, it is mind-boggling. And with gluten intolerance being such a popular topic, they are making flour out of like everything. Coconut flour. I'm just amazed when I go to Walmart. I always like to peruse the flowers. But what I would encourage you to do is learn how to use all-purpose flour first in a variety of ways. So I buy my flours in 25-pound bags. I freeze it for 48 hours. I pull it out and I repackage it in Mylar bags in reasonable quantities, usually about a 5-pound quantity. If you want to take your all-purpose flour and make bread flour out of it, what you do is you take a cup of all-purpose flour, take out 1.5 teaspoons of the flour. Oh my, oh guys, I'm sorry. My tripod's having a little problem today. It just started sinking, sorry about that. So back, cup of flour, take out 1.5 teaspoons of it, put it back in your bag. Add to that 1.5 teaspoons of Vital Wheat gluten. So I do include Vital Wheat gluten as a necessary pantry staple, because also some breads, even when you're using bread flour, will call for additional Vital Wheat gluten. And you can buy that in a pretty good sized bag on Amazon for a very reasonable price. I've never been able to find it at my local Walmart, but you may in your area be able to find it. I've also never seen it at Aldi. Another thing you can do with all-purpose flour, let's say you're making a recipe and it calls for self-rising flour. Rather than to stock self-rising flour, what you can do is take a cup of all-purpose flour, add to that 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and boom, you have all-purpose flour. I actually stock a variety of flours. Another flour that I think is a great thing to have in a long-term pantry is rye flour. Now, in 2019, they had a major rye crop failure. So it was very difficult in 2020 to find rye flour. The reason I like rye flour is twofold. One is I love rye bread. It's delicious, it's nutritious, it's fibrous, it's very good for you. The other reason is rye flour is great for making sourdough starter. So if you run out of yeast or yeast becomes unavailable, which we ran into in 2020, you can make a sourdough starter that will make leaven or rising bread out of rye flour. So all-purpose and rye. Now, I do buy bread flour as well and stock that because I make so much bread and I don't want to have to do the measurements. But if you're money conscious and you really cannot afford all the different types, at minimum, get yourself some all-purpose flour because you can do so much with it. I would also include in this category cornmeal. So I love me some cornbread. I do have quite a few of the, oh my gosh, where'd they go? Well, anyway, the Jiffy Corn Muffin mixes because they are very inexpensive and it's one of the things the food pantry often has in their monthly offering. And sometimes I don't want to take the time to measure everything out. I just kind of want to dump it in, add my egg, add my oil, make myself some corn muffins. But cornmeal is a great thing to have on hand. It is great for battering fish. It's great for making salmon patties if you do that. There's a lot of uses for cornmeal. So all-purpose flour, rye flour, cornmeal, those are the 3 top things I highly recommend in a starter pantry. Now let's talk about fats and oils. So what do I have on hand? I've shared before, I am allergic to soybean. Soybean is in everything. And vegetable oil is made from primarily soybeans. So you will not find vegetable oil in my house. I have corn oil or canola oil, and there's some health research that canola is not good for you. So actually I have no canola left. I'm buying strictly corn oil now and olive oil. So you do need something in addition to olive oil, some type of vegetable-based oil. So it's great for frying, it's great for baking. There's so many recipes that call for a little bit of oil. I also keep lard. And the reason I keep lard is primarily for my soap making, but it's an edible form of lard, so that is another fat. I keep butter and in my freezer, and I buy a pound of butter and just stock up that way. So think about what you're going to put on your toast or muffins in the morning as well. Sesame oil is another good oil that I like to keep on hand. If you do any Asian cooking or you like that Asian flavor, that is a delicious oil that will really enhance your cooking and keep it from being so boring. I also keep avocado oil, and I started doing that really from the standpoint of making soap, but I found that it is good in cooking as well. So the possibilities are endless. If you're just starting out, I would recommend you at minimum have a vegetable oil and an olive oil. Coconut oil is another great thing. As a couple of you have asked, why is my hair so shiny? So I'm going to share something with you. I've told you I was on the quest for the most perfect shampoo and conditioner, and I tried making shampoo bars and conditioner bars with so-so success. And I finally was reading about just using coconut oil, working it through your hair, leaving it sit for 30 minutes, then shampooing it out. And it has been marvelous. So I keep coconut oil for soaping. I keep coconut oil for my hair. It makes a great moisturizer. It's also very good for eating. So guys, I'm going to pause for just a moment because I'm using my phone, and I'll be right back. And I'm seeing all of these notifications pop up for porn links on my Sunday video. So hang tight, I'll be right back. My apologies, guys. This is just It's so discouraging. It's actually Sunday when I'm doing this video, and it's the Lord's Day, and people are posting just terrible things. So they have now been reported and blocked. So my apologies. Let's go on. So back to fats and oils. One of the things you need to remember is you don't want to overbuy, because oils and fats do go rancid, so they have a definite shelf life. So make sure you're keeping them in a dark container, in a dark cupboard, and if need be, you can refrigerate those as well to prolong their shelf life. Okay, the next category. Oh my goodness, more notifications. I'm just going to ignore them, and I'm going to finish up because they're not going to spoil our party, right? Herbs and spices. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be able to open my spice drawer or go to my home dehydrated spices and make pretty much anything I want. Now, when you go to the spice aisle, you may be like, oh my goodness, I don't even know what these are for. So let's just go real basic. You need salt. You need pepper. I would say get a couple sweet or baking spices, such as cinnamon, maybe an apple pie spice, a pumpkin pie spice, maybe nutmeg, whatever your family and yourself eat and like. Start there. Then pick a couple savory spices. At minimum, granulated garlic, granulated onion. You can do a lot to punch up the flavor with that. And then pick a couple other things you like. Maybe you like basil. Maybe you like tarragon. So add that. A good Italian spice blend is always good to have. And then some hot spices like chili powder. I powder my long hots that I grow as well, and those are great to have to add a little heat and flavor, maybe some cumin as well. So kind of think sweet, savory, and spicy, and just get a little bit each time from each category. I also will include in this extracts. So at minimum, if you're doing home cooking, you're going to need vanilla. And vanilla is kind of pricey. Now, a lot of people make their own vanilla. I actually tried it. Not being a drinker of alcoholic beverages, I tried making it with some type of alcohol. It wasn't vodka, it was colored. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. And it was way too boozy for me. I could taste it even in baked goods. And I know the alcohol content cooks out, but it didn't have a flavor I liked. So I do not make my own vanilla extract. I do purchase it. And then I would say pick at least one other extract. You can do a lot with maple. You can flavor breads. You can make your own maple flavored syrup because maple syrup can be quite costly. And maybe one fruit flavor. I would choose orange. I love orange. And you can do so much with it. It goes very well with chocolate, baked items as well. Bouillons or dry broth. I don't know what else exactly to call it. So I have chicken and I have vegetable. I have used beef, but I use it so infrequently that I primarily go for the vegetable or the chicken-based broth, dried broth. Canned and jarred goods. So if you're not a home canner, you know what your family eats, you know what you like. Just buy one extra vegetable, one extra can of fruit, one extra peanut butter, one extra meat. Just stocking up very slowly so that you have some on the shelf for down the road can be a great sense of security as well. I keep fruit, and I'm a terrible fruit eater. It's not that I dislike it, it's just I'm not good about eating it. I keep vegetables. I keep all of my canned vegetables. I do keep some meats. I keep some tuna and some chicken. You know, if we were to have a power failure, those meats are fully cooked. You could literally open the can, make sure you have a non-electric can opener. I didn't. I had to get one. Eat it out of the can. It would be better than going hungry. Another canned good that I would really encourage you to do to have a well-rounded pantry is tomatoes. So if you don't can your own, And you really don't want to buy all the different types of tomatoes because there's whole, there's crushed, there's diced, there's chilies and tomatoes like a rotel. Buy the crushed tomatoes because you can do so much with them without having to alter it. If you buy just tomato sauce, it may be too runny. If you buy diced tomatoes, it might be too chunky. So crushed tomatoes is a great option to have on your shelf. I also would highly recommend you keep tomato paste because it's a great addition to many, many, many dishes. And if your sauce is kind of thin, it's a great way to thicken up a sauce quickly, a tomato-based sauce. So I canned a whole bunch of pasta sauce this year, and it's a little thin, as is my pizza sauce. So I keep several cans of tomato paste on the shelf. It's not something I can home can. Keep some evaporated milk. That's always a great staple to have on hand that could be reconstituted for drinking, although I'm not sure how it tastes, for cooking. And if you have almonds, you can also use almond milk in just about any recipe that calls for milk as well. And then finally, keep some ready-made broths if you don't can your own. So some vegetables, some chicken. That way you can make a quick soup. If you're doing a crock pot meal and you need to add some liquid, or you want to use it to make rice or even stuffing, it's a great thing to have. I have a lot of home canned onion broth that is marvelous as a soup base as well. So here we go, final category, miscellaneous. So I'm going to start with sweeteners. So I keep honey, I keep sugar, which, I'm terrible at pointing backwards. I buy in 25-pound bags, freeze for 24 hours. Then I jar it up in half-gallon jars. And from sugar, you can make brown sugar or powdered sugar. So you will not find those items on my shelf. You will find a gallon jug of molasses so that I can make brown sugar from regular sugar. If you don't eat a lot of brown sugar, or you're not sure you'll cook with a lot of brown sugar, you may not want to buy the gallon. It's a little more pricey upfront, but it's actually cheaper per ounce than buying it in small containers. Syrup is also another thing that I would count in sweeteners, and I actually use artificial sweetener, so I keep some of that on hand for my iced tea. Vinegars. You do need to keep at least 2 vinegars, white vinegar and apple cider vinegar. Those can be used for so many things, for canning, for dressings, for sauces. It's just a great thing to have on hand. I also like to keep balsamic vinegar because it has a totally different taste. And I have quite a few different vinegars, rice vinegar, malt vinegar, great on fish and chips. Red wine vinegar as well, but at least consider the white and the apple cider at minimum. And I'd sneak balsamic in there too because it's so yum. Keep some dried fruit on hand. Great for snacking, great to add to cereal, to oatmeal, to your homemade granolas. Water. It's an area of weakness for me. So behind me down here, I do have some jugs of water. Now I have a rain barrel that I collect water in from my roof, which I would not consider potable or drinkable, but I could certainly use it for bathing, etc. So I don't have a good solution on stocking water. I don't have the space to really do it. So I have enough to last me about 3 days for drinking for Frankie and for myself. Beverages, coffees, teas. You know, I have started doing something new that's been super helpful for my pantry building, and that is when I buy a large box, because I drink iced tea and water and coffee and that, well, and almond milk, that's about it. I mark on it the date that I start using it, and then when it's empty, I can look and see, okay, this box lasted me a month, it lasted me 2 months. How much ahead do I want to be? So I'm still learning on my iced tea how much I drink because it seems to vary depending on how cold it is outside. And along with tea, make sure that you keep some health teas. You know, there's a lot of great herbal teas out there, like chamomile to help you relax and sleep. Mint and orange are great to give you energy without the caffeine. There's a lot of medicinal, like throat coat. There's just such a variety. So I have lots and lots of different options for tea, and I always have coffee because Kim does not go in the morning without her coffee, that's for sure. Next under miscellaneous is baking aids. So if you're going to bake from scratch, you're going to need a few things. We've already talked about salt, but you need baking soda, baking powder, cream of tartar, cornstarch, yeast, which is an important thing, and I would add to that cocoa powder. Now, I'm not a huge chocolate fan, but I do make things that are chocolate, and I certainly make dishes for other people that are chocolate. So it's great if you have little ones to have cocoa powder on hand. You may want to add to that things like raisins, which is really dried fruit, chocolate chips, whatever you and your family enjoy should be part of your staples pantry so you don't have to make a store run every time you want to bake a batch of chocolate chip cookies. I also keep powdered milk. So this kind of falls under the dairy category. So I keep evaporated milk, sweetened condensed milk for bread making, and then I also keep powdered milk for bread making. And along with that, I keep powdered mashed potatoes. I do not eat them. I could if I had to, but they are a wonderful addition to homemade bread as well. Protein powder. You know, if we would have a long-term power failure, you're a meat eater, and everything in your freezer goes bad, you might eat like kings and queens for a few days, but once all that meat is either gone or is no longer edible, you can get protein from your rice and beans, but maybe having a protein shake would be a good thing. So I do keep a couple bags, and let's see, up there, of some protein powder on hand so that I can have a shake whenever I need one or my diet is suffering, which it does sometimes when I'm not in the meat eating mood. Couple sauces I would recommend that you keep at minimum: soy and Worcestershire. That can add a lot of punch and flavor if you do any Asian cooking, any stir fries, and Worcestershire is a great addition to things like meatloaf, and I put it in my baked beans as well. And then the final thing that I recommend that you keep in your canning pantry your pantry is canning supplies. So things like lemon juice, pectin. If you use Sure Gel, you'll want to have that. You need the white vinegar. You need canning salt. Of course, jars, rings, lids, but that's a non-food item. So let me know. Drop me a comment below. What is your pantry like? Are you planning on building a long-term pantry in 2021? If so, where are you on your journey, and how can I help you? And is there any other content you would like to see? I haven't been saying this on my videos, but I'm going to say it today. If you haven't already and you find value in my channel, please subscribe. Subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell to be notified of all the new videos. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out greatly as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's content. Be well, be healthy, be blessed, and I'll see y'all real soon. Take care.